This is Father's Day week, so happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. You're watching The Guitar Show. Hey guys, welcome to The Guitar Show. Once again, I'm Nico, and behind me here is the Fender Cybertwin. This amp is beastly. We're going to be showing you how it works a little bit today, show you some of the features and some of the things that really have entered into our amplifier world. It used to be just speakers with volume and tone controls, a little gain, maybe some reverb, but everything's gotten very digital today with a lot of onboard effects. You might be familiar with the Line 6 series. They've almost practically taken over. I'd say they've mastered the art of digital amplifiers. This is the Fender series, and this is the first of the Cybertwins. There's actually a version 2 that's out. So this is the first generation. It's basically a standard twin amp. There are two speakers in here. It's built pretty much the scale of the regular original twins, the old-fashioned ones that we saw years and years ago, except this has digital effects built in. And when you look at the knobs on here, there's a big knob here that goes through the various channels that you can see on the screen. So you can channel your way through all 100 of these different presets. There are different buttons here for adjusting and basically making everything customized the way you want it. One button for changing the amplifier settings, getting different amp simulations, and the other for the actual effects. So it really functions like two things in one. It's an amplifier and an effects board put together, and it models all sorts of amplifiers and has a great variety of effects. Likewise, if you happen to have your own effects, they work fine. Everything on the back of this amplifier is equipped for effects loops of all kinds, or you could go direct in straight through the input like you would with your floor switches. So one of the features that's really great on here are these knobs. Now these knobs are mechanized. Mechanized. So those are the knobs. Now down below the screen are three smaller knobs, and they function just like a standard foot switch controller would work. If you have a chorus switch or an overdrive switch or a delay switch, you notice on all of these little pedals that there are usually anywhere between often 2 to 4 different knobs on a standard, and you can just bend over and tweak them as you go. One of the challenges with preset channels is that when you're sitting here trying to play and something is preset, you get into a live situation and suddenly you need to change something a little bit, or you change songs and, oh, you know what, I need to adjust this and that. And it's definitely a problem with digital effects that are preset because they're stuck. So Fender put in 3 knobs here that allow you the simulation of whatever you'd have on the floor. So if you wanted to adjust or tweak your delay, your overdrive, your chorus, whatever it is, you can go in here and change it. And the knobs are completely universal. They work with whatever you happen to have on that channel. So if you have a flanger on, phaser, whatever it is, this will adjust the parameters for that switch. It's a great setup. It has a tap button, which is one of my favorite features. Anything when it comes to multi-effects processors, which I use. You guys might have seen my digital board that I have from Digitech. And that thing has a tap button also. The tap button is great because with the tap button you can basically set anything to the tempo of the song that you're playing. So if you have a trem effect, that trem effect is like a shaky sound that we all know. It's a great effect, but it has to be with the beat of the rhythm or the beat of the song. Same thing with the delay. You can tap in the tempo and get the delay to echo just to the beat. And that's really what makes an effect fit to a song. It's not just a sound, but it's getting the right setting. And that tiny little tap button is one of the strongest, most powerful settings on the entire amp because it brings everything right to the song that you're playing. And you can do it on the fly. So if you were playing a song and just at the intro, perhaps the drummer starts the song a little quick, go in there, push the button, get yourself right there. It only takes about 2 or 3 taps, and it catches right up. You only need a few beats. Now, out of all these mechanized knobs, there are two knobs that never actually turn and move themselves, and that's because you don't want them to. One is the master volume control. You want that to basically stay put. You don't want to change your master volume. It would be obnoxiously loud or off. So that doesn't move. And a trim knob on the end. Trim knobs basically add and pull a little bit of the drive, and so you can sometimes with different guitars and different pickups, you can kind of heat up the input a little bit or soften it so that it's not too much or too little, which is a big thing because when you're playing through certain overdrives and you switch guitars, especially with something with preset effects, switching from a guitar that has hot pickups or powerful pickups, we'll say, to something that has very soft, mild pickups that aren't as potent, there's a big difference, and the same channel won't sound the same, not just because the guitars don't sound the same, but because the power isn't there. And so to keep the power of the overdrive the same between all of your guitars that you might be using, they've put the trim knob in, and that allows for that. Older amps that aren't digital also have trim knobs, and they were used also for similar reasons, but not so much for the benefit of the effects as much as just tweaking your tones. So, very good feature. On the amp, there are 4 preset channels that you can basically assign to a pedal board. The pedal board just has 4 on-off switches, sits on the floor, you press whichever channel you want. And I think it's great because you don't really need too many. In an average situation, you often almost only use the same 4 sounds, maybe 5, but a lot of us really focus on the same sort of thing, so it's good. In most scenarios, you might have 4 different settings, but perhaps a slightly different effect on 1 or 2, 4 of those settings. And the other thing is that in the back of the amp, there's a bypass input. There's a switch that comes with the amp as well, and you can press on the bypass and cut whatever effect is on. Giving you an example, you've got your gain on, you're rocking out with the overdrive, and you want to hit your chorus switch somewhere in there, but you don't want it for the whole song. You can hit the bypass switch, cut the chorus, and come right back in with just overdrive, or vice versa, play through your overdrive and hit that switch to bring that back. The bypass switch can also be assigned, so it doesn't necessarily have to be for the effects. It can bypass and chop different things, so it's a great, great feature. There's also an expression input in the back. If you have an expression pedal, you can take advantage of that and control your volume, control your gain input, control your wah pedal. So this thing is fully equipped, and it just takes whatever you happen to have or just use what it has. So that's the Fender Cybertwin in a nutshell. Why don't we take a closer look at the effects? Now, the channels on here spread out on the presets from 2 to 3 categories, and I say 2 to 3 because really it's cut in half, and one half are presets that are built in that you can't change, and the other half are user presets that you can change. The first part of it is the amplifier section. It has simulated amplifiers from years and years ago to even today's modern amps, all in different channels. And then beyond that is the next section, which are actually presets to model after certain guitar players' sounds or certain sounds that you've heard in certain songs. So starting with the amps, I've got it set right now to an old deluxe amp from 1955, very vintage. The overdrives back then weren't heavy duty. You couldn't bang out heavy metal that you have today on those old amps. You'd have to have a foot switch to play through them. They didn't have the same gain. So when you listen to this, it's crunchy, but it doesn't really bite in the same way that heavy metal would bite or hardcore rock.